Okay, so I've been trying to make a video about this like all day, and I'm like, I just need to go live because I think that's the only way I'm gonna get it out, or else I'm just gonna be a perfectionist about it. So, but I also don't know like how long it's gonna take me, so I think I'm gonna put a limit on it because I am going to a friend of mine. His play is tonight. He is It's his last play. He's playing Henry the Fourth at the Guthrie. It's like the history plays or whatever, but yeah, and he dies, but like in the play. But there's actually 3 plays. But anyways, I'm gonna go to that tonight, and then I have to like run and get him something too because it's like his last night. But anyways, TMI. So I think I'm gonna set a limit and say that I'm gonna do this for like 45 minutes, and then I'm not going to look at the comments. I'm just going to talk. But maybe I'll look at the comments later if anyone ends up watching or whatever. But I'm not going to really pay attention to that. So, but I'm going to just start going over just some of this information that I found this week that I thought was pretty interesting that I did while I was like researching some information about Brian Koberger's hearing. And I thought it was like I was pretty convinced that it was going to be about the I thought they were going to be talking about the DNA. So I like looked back and I like reviewed a bunch of the DNA like different shows and kind of brought up on some things, and during that process I like was just honestly pretty amazed about like what I found. So I think it's worth going over and talking about because I feel like it's like not really talked about a lot, or like people aren't really being like, I feel like we're being bamboozled by the government, and like it's just crazy. Like it's so obvious. Like it's just they should. Okay, so I'm gonna show you guys what I'm talking about, but so I'll just give you a little bit of an overview. I'm gonna also write an article for Substack that is gonna follow the same kind of format that I'm doing here for this video too. So just to remind myself, and you guys, I'll try to link it in the description box below. Oh, and by the way, this is my cat Leela. Want to say hi to everyone, Leela? Hey dear. So okay, yeah. Then so what ended up happening with the Kohlberger hearing was that it actually wasn't about. Oh, hopefully you guys can hear me okay. Um, it wasn't actually about um the DNA like I thought it was going to be. It ended up being about well, this data collection process, and so I found that really interesting, and I thought that it kind of overlapped really well with some of the information that I was finding in my research on the DNA. And I feel like the government is being super shady about this stuff, and I kind of feel like a lot of like the defense people are like starting to notice and um like hopefully try to smarten up. And I think it's like interesting because from what it seems like or what it sounds like, is there really hasn't been any laws made about this stuff yet. So it's like in its infancy, but like right now the government's in a position where they can kind of like brainwash us all to think that like something's good when it's not. And so I think it's just important to like remain like open-minded and like critically think about um some of the information that we're being given and being told, like just like about like evidence collection for criminal justice stuff or like criminal investigations. So, yeah. And then also, so like the Kohlberger hearing, I was I've done like a bunch of like just actual research, and I've worked with a lot of different like number crunching systems. So, like one is I've worked with SPSS and in vivo. So like both of SPSS is like more of like, it's working with numbers and surveys and analyzing a lot of data. So pretty much exactly what they talked about at the Kohlberger hearing. And like I like honestly like listened to it like 3 different times because I was like, okay, what is going on? Because I don't know. I don't do like sciencey type things, or like I don't have a background in like, computer stuff. But I did like wait, hold on. I feel like shoot. Okay, never mind. What the hell? Okay, this is better. I just need to remember what is up. Okay, and then also, okay, so I'm gonna end at 3:30. Yeah. Um, so or maybe I should end no, yeah, 3:30 works just fine. Okay. So that gives me another 40 minutes. But yeah, so when I was in grad school, I uh I did both like a lot. Well, so my dissertation, I used both quantitative and qualitative information. And so it's just you use these different kind of applications that can just crunch a bunch of this data for you and come up with like it already probably is coded in there with like what you need to like run um and it's just really nice to kind of have the structure there. I mean, it's kind of similar to like what you think of like a Excel like spreadsheet, but a lot more complicated and different. But I like didn't know how to code before that. But so I feel like I actually understood like at the end of it, like what they were actually saying in the hearing. And then I was listening to some reviews about like I think I listened to like something from like Good Morning America or something, like pretty like national news coverage of the Kohlberger hearing, and everyone was saying that they he um shit, I forgot what I was talking about. Damn it. Okay, but what the fuck was I gonna say? Okay, anyways, but I understood what he was talking about and what she was asking him in the Kohlberger hearing, and it sounds super shady. And honestly, it sounds like he went in there and he like fucked with the data and like didn't know that like those logs were actually still able to be like accessed in the system. And he probably didn't know that, so he like did it and then deleted it and then took screenshots of some bullshit that he just falsely entered the information, which is super easy to do, and no one's there to check him. And it's like he obviously intentionally chose to not save that data set. And like, you can so and like sometimes when you do like huge analyses and like if you need to filter out like certain numbers, like he said that he got like an entire AT&T, like the full data set from AT&T. So that's like so much information. And like yeah, and like she was saying too on the hearing, like she was like, we have like five like I don't know, giga trillion billion bytes. I have no idea what that means, but like I mean, but that doesn't so it is a ton of data, but we also have like a very small things that can hold a lot of information. It's not like we're like, working in the 60s with, I mean, you can give a bunch of information, but all of it is probably not pertinent, obviously, but like probably little to none of it is actually pertinent, but you can easily filter through those data sets and like find what you're looking for. So if you get like a full data set of like AT&T, like the Colorado like log or location information, and you can see that they yes, then you only want to look at like these four numbers, and then you want to look at this one area like location and see if those numbers were in that area. Or you can say, let's just look at that number and see like where it shows up, like, in general or whatever. So you can choose different ways. And um but yeah, so I'm not gonna get into that right now. Sorry, I just kind of like went off in a little tangent about that because that's like I think an example of so I was doing research for the hearing because like I said, I thought that it was gonna be about the DNA and like how they collected the DNA. And what I found, like, it actually is like very similar or like overlaps pretty much with the shady way that they collected the information for the Koberger hearing with like what they were asking about at the hearing. Like she was asking how he made those data sets and like those screenshots. And he's like, it is a lot of information to get to the bottom of it, whatever, whatever. He doesn't actually have access to it. He was just like told by someone to do something. So basically anyone could just like give him a false data set and he would run the numbers and he wouldn't know any better, you know what I mean? Like, there's not someone there that's actually, like, checking to make sure that, like, this is valid, like, this information that we got from this place actually is what it is supposed to mean, you know, like, it actually is what they're saying it is. Like, if you say, "This is data from the other night," or whatever, but, like, it actually is from, 2 weeks ago when there wasn't something going on, like there was a couple nights ago, but you can just change the, like, way that the information is, like, saved in a file and then, like, use that chunk of information and, like, use that to, like, falsify stuff. So, anyways, that's, like, what you can do what I think that they are doing with this bullshit, like, location information, which is interesting because now I'm gonna talk about the DNA, and I feel like both the DNA and the, information that they have for, like, his location information, I feel like both of them were falsified. Like, I'm, like, convinced. Like, I know that that's, like, a pretty big accusation to make, but, I just, like I'm in general just, like, don't really trust the government, but, like, in this case, especially with the Koberger one, like, it's just been so shady, and, like, I think that this, like now that we're actually getting down into, like, the nitty-gritty and, like, watching, like, the case, and now that we're seeing the hearings, and, like, that's why I think it's good to have it all public, but that's why it's shady as fuck that, like, the prosecution doesn't want it public because they know that they're being, like, super shisty about the way that they're collecting information. So, yeah. But, yeah, and, like, I actually and now I'm gonna play, this interview well, yeah, so it's an interview that I found when I was prepping for like I said, I thought the hearing was gonna be about DNA, so I was like, "Maybe I can have a grasp of, like, what they're talking about or whatever." And, hold on, I'm drinking a smoothie. Okay, but, yeah. So, while I was doing, so I think what's gonna work best, and I didn't really wanna do this, but I started taking notes, and I do have some, like, specific spots that I wanna, like, talk about and stop at, but I'm basically gonna, like, review this entire, like, video. It's an interview with this woman named Cece Moore, and she is interviewed on a YouTube channel, called, Harvard Lawyer Lee, I believe is, her name. So they're both, like, blonde women. I'll pull up the the video, and then I'll kind of start so I'll talk to you a little bit about what they're talking about, but then I think if we watch it together and then I can kind of, like, stop and explain, like, how I'm understanding it because the shit that she's saying, it's, like, just like, it's unbelievable, to be honest. Like, I'm just, like so I hope people can, like, tell me if I'm being dramatic about this or, like, if I'm overreacting, but this woman just seems so they both just seem like women that should not I mean, I should okay, I'm a woman, like, I don't know, I'm a girl's girl. I like to lift other women up, but I also feel like if you're gonna be in a position where you have a lot of power or you have, like, lot of pull and things, like being a, like, lawyer or, and, like, representing vulnerable people, or, like, this lady that the CC Moore lady, she's, like just wait until you see what the position that this woman is in. So, anyways, I'm not here to, like, talk smack about these ladies at all, like, I mean, again, like, respect to them both, but I feel like it's very important to, like, check these things because it's, like, so weighty, like, what they're just kind of throwing around, so and I think people need to be and, like, maybe people are gonna think that I'm, like, overreacting and whatever, but I do feel like people really need to be aware of, what the government is taking. We've already seen the government misuse a bunch of our information, and now they have now they're misusing our DNA, and, like, honestly, like, remember what happened last time when, like, government started talking about, like, I don't know, DNA and, like, I don't know, like, it reminds me of, like, Nazi shit, like, I do not want the government to, like, have any information about, like, who I am that's, like, that identifiable, you know what I mean? Um, and because then they can fuck with you, like, they could take like they're doing in a lot of these cases, they can just, like, you know, if they know what your DNA is, they can just get some of your DNA and, like, pretend to put it on some shit that isn't even yours, like, I mean, like, they set stuff up, like, I mean, there's, like, I mean, I know I like sound like a huge conspiracy theorist, but like honestly, like okay, so let's just get into it before. Um, so, anyways, this lady, okay, I wrote a little bit. So, this is I'm writing this Substack article too, but um, it does just like a good a job like discussing what this lady does. So I said, this is the most alarming thing I found when doing my research, and it concerns the risks to one's privacy and civil liberties and current standard practices in the DNA evidence collection process in criminal investigations. So I know that sounds like a lot of information, and it is kind of like, like word salad, but it is a thing that they do, and it sounds very specific, but it is a very specific thing that they're doing, and they're like doing it very dishonestly. Like, they are not being upfront, and they're being, like, very, secretive about the way that they're using this information to arrest people and to, like, find out people's DNA without people consenting, So and they're trying to keep it hidden, they're doing that. But luckily, we have, like, a lady that I feel like doesn't really understand exactly, like, what's going on, and, like, what she's saying is just, like, "Okay, just wait till we get into it." I'm sorry, I don't wanna be rude, but just wait. Okay, so hold on. So this lady, I don't even know what degree she has. I don't know if she said that she has any, but this is, like, a self-trained program. It's basically, like, this she invented, like, a science, and it's called, like, genetic genealogy, and, um it hasn't like they're using it in criminal investigations, and it hasn't really been like okayed like by the general public, and like the general public hasn't really even like really known that they're doing this until like the last couple of years. So they're really trying to keep it on the DL because they like really want to have access to this information, but they know that if we actually found out like, you know, how they are going about getting this information, that everyone would be upset about it and they would try to shut it down. So I think it is important to get this information out. Um, so yeah, okay, so I'm just gonna start playing this interview. So like I said, oh wait, did I share the screen yet? No. Okay. Oh fuck. Oops. I mean, I'm sorry that I swore. Okay, hold on. Here we go. Okay. So I'm gonna just start playing it. And then I'm gonna like keep my microphone on, but I'm gonna hide my face because I kind of want to smoke a cigarette. Okay.
For 200 years old, there have been a zillion cases on any given topic. This is kind of new. There's not a lot of established law about what gets discovered or what doesn't. Compared to other types of things in the law, this is all pretty new and exciting. And on this channel, we just really like to figure out stuff. And I understand that you are great at explaining things. So I wanted to cover 5 basic areas. The first is
Okay, yeah, this part was kind of funny. So also I'm trying not to look at the streaming so because I don't want to get nervous and like see people watching me. So far when I've looked, it's only been 0. So that's good. And I kind of want to keep that way, but I'm not gonna look anywhere. But I also am like not gonna really look at comments, but I'll look at them after if anyone is on there. I apologize. But um okay, yeah. So this part is interesting because she's talking about um so this lady CC Moore, she is in charge of this huge program that pretty much all of the United States state governments use to try to like illegally identify people, like they did with Koberger and a bunch of other people. And she, like I said, I don't know. She hasn't really had much training. Like it's all self-taught. And she said that she actually really loves to, educate people, and where she does like a lot of that education and like learning process like is through her Facebook group, which I'm just like I'm sorry, like you know more like I respect that and like very good for her. Like I mean, she literally created a science that's awesome, but unfortunately, I feel like what she like kind of created was just a little bit like um it's just, like, someone with her, like, level of, like, understanding of, what she's working with is not someone that should have that much power over this type of information. So, but anyway, so she's like, I love educating people about this, and like you can't really get any training. And she's like, I just started my own program, and we're gonna start doing our own trainings. But I'm like, okay, well, what are your credentials behind that? Like, so you can just make up a science, and like all of a sudden we're just gonna like accept it to like work to like identify people that are going up against the death penalty. I mean, they're using this DNA, her programs for this DNA to like on death penalty trials, and other really like important trials like that are pretty weighty. Like it's not just like, oh, did you like, get a parking ticket? It's like she's like sending people to the fucking firing squad, Like, I mean, that's some fucking real shit. And she has no idea what's going like she has no idea about any of this. Okay, so listen, so then okay, so it's super cringy. She talks about like how she's like loves to educate people, but it sounds like, it's just like her own education. So like anyways, if you don't understand what I'm saying, I feel like then I don't know if I'm gonna be able to explain it that well. Oh wait, sorry, I forgot my camera was off. My bad. But I didn't want to smoke. So anyways, so then she talks about okay, so here's the process of the system of how she goes about getting this information. So um there's the CSI crime scene investigation is where the DNA is gathered from. And then they end up going, so that's the first step. And then the second step is like on the government level. So like the state, if the state gets this information or whatever, like the genetic information, they can enter it into CODIS. And like I'm sure a lot of people have heard about CODIS, and that is anyone that has committed a felony, they are in that system. And so if you've been someone that has already been arrested and like served time or charged with a felony, like you are going to have your DNA on file on CODIS. And I think they started tracking those like late 90s or something. Well, maybe before that. I don't know. Anyways, doesn't matter. Yeah, and then so this is okay, I wrote down the times. She's like, let me see. First one talks about why can only be used by a third party. Okay, so here we go. All right. So there are these two different processes. There's the STEM, like STM, and then the SNP, like SNP. And those are two different data collections of DNA. And so we have only allowed the government to access a very basic level of our DNA. So like so if you get someone's DNA and you're trying to like compare it to like a crime scene investigation and like DNA on that crime scene, oh, you basically have to like match it perfectly. Like if you're matching it against the actual, perpetrator, like it's gonna match one on one. But like you can't really they don't want to give you access. They don't want to give people access to the much more detailed information. And that detailed information is what she's working with. So the SNAP. So but so this is so shady. What the government did is basically they just found a loophole. Like she's the loophole. So like the government's not allowed to use like this level of DNA, but if they can access it, like she can give a tip. She could be like she can access. They give her DNA. It's just like a private person giving a DNA sample, even though it's like your perpetrators. And then they put it into this, they give it to her, and then she plugs it into this system. And then she provides it as a tip back to the the law enforcement agencies, even though it's like illegal. That's why like they are making them do that, is because it's not like legal to, get the more detailed information. And this is like super problematic because what she's doing is like, okay, well, and here's the other thing. So it's all like really complicated, but I do feel like this is definitely worth like talking out because shit is kind of shady as fuck. But So, uh, okay, so this is what I wrote, and then maybe I can play her stuff too. But it says, um, so no crime labs. Okay, no crime labs can create the snap that she has. It's this form of DNA, and you need a third party. And I wrote like this stupid lady to get that information. And then okay, she said that the reason why they are able, okay, she can only access two programs that have DNA like uploaded to the system. So, like for example, people that have sent in samples to 23andMe or Ancestry.com, um, they have all those databases filled with all of that DNA information, but they have all these terms of services that say that the government can't access that information because it's so um, private, and people didn't give permission or consent to have that, uh, the DNA or like that like data evidence used for that purpose. They didn't give it the right, for people to investigate them using that. Um, so basically, like so she said that she can match like with the JED match and Family Tree, which are two similar programs, like to like there's yeah, like she said 23andMe, and then there's here no, oh yeah, there's heritage.com, which is a shady one in Israel, she said. But she didn't say it was shady, but I'll tell you why it is when I get to that part. But and then she said okay, Family Tree and GED match are the ones that um they have it's like a very small sample size, and the reason, the way that they have that sample size or that sampling from people, she didn't even say. And I'm like, well, who is the person that agreed to give this like DNA information to you guys to compare it to? You know what I mean? Like, and then so then she starts talking about how, like, most of the time these matches are like super far back. Like you have to go back super far, like almost like, like third cousins, like eight, a bunch of times removed or whatever, which means like that there's not a lot of people that are, that are in that gave consent to have their DNA in there. So that's why it gets a lot more complicated. Like, if you had access to more of the data sets, like from 23andMe and stuff, like you could find a lot closer like matches, like with first cousins and stuff. But with such a small sample size, she's like, well, like we always go out to like third cousins or whatever. And it's like, well, so I'm wondering, and like I wrote this down too, and like this is definitely something that I want to follow up on and figure out is like, why, okay, so where are they getting that data from then? Like with the uh what was it? Oops. Oh, okay, yeah. So oh, what does that mean? No. Okay. So shit. Okay, yeah, she said okay, so I'm sorry that I just kind of zoned out there because I was like trying to figure out how to best like explain this. But all right, I'm just gonna play this and I'm just gonna let you guys like figure out, like I have around the areas where it's like super shady, but I'm just gonna play this and then it gets so crazy. Okay. So it's like around the 11-minute mark. Hold on, let me see. Where's my shoot. Where did it go? What the hell? No, I can't find the video. That was just, oh, here it is. Okay, my bad.
Was I wanted to learn about the DNA, and I wanted us all to be able to talk about it on the channel. And I asked,
educating law enforcement,
Oh,
educating attorneys and
this is where she's
judges.
talking about how she
And so
educates other
that
people.
is something I put a lot of effort into. So
not that part. So first one from this morning, an interview at around 11 morning can only be used by third party. She explains. Okay, yeah. So then I'm just gonna start playing, and then yeah, like I said, I feel like I have a lot of things to say, but I don't really know exactly what I'm talking about in my notes.
Let's talk about sort of how you do it. Let's look at some of your slides. I'm going to put up the first slide that you sent, the snippet of raw data. Is
Yes.
this what you get from law enforcement when you're about to start the portion you're going to do? Do you get
Oops, shit. Damn it. Hold up.
common law? The precedents are 200 years old. There have been a zillion cases on any given topic. This is kind of new. There's not a lot of established.
Okay. Yeah,
Fair
exactly.
or
That's correct, but there's actually 2 iterations of DNA analysis before I would get involved. So you're right. They
This is the
have their
part that I
crime scene
just
investigators.
explained.
They collect evidence, and then that evidence is going to go to the crime lab. And if they find any DNA of an unknown or unknown individuals, they will run what's called STRs. That's the type of profile that's court admissible that has been used by law enforcement for decades. But that is not compatible for genetic genealogy. So if they upload that profile to the law enforcement databases, CODIS, and they don't get a hit, then that's when they would turn to investigative genetic genealogy. If they get a match in the law enforcement database, then they don't need us. So we only are going to be involved after that point if that doesn't happen. Then they have to send us some of that evidence, that biological evidence, because we can't use that traditional STR profile. We have to have what's called a SNP profile, a single nucleotide polymorphism profile. And there are, at this point, no crime labs in the United States that are capable of creating that. So it has to go to a third-party private lab to create that SNP profile. There's 2 different ways they can do it.
Yeah. So do you guys like
Probably
get like
that
remember how
the
that's what I was like talking? What the fuck?
subscribers.
Pause, bitches. Okay. So that's like what I was just explaining about, like how it's a loophole. She's the loophole. She's like, yeah, it needs to go to a third party. It's like, why does it need to go to a third party? Like, why does the government not have access to it? Like, you would think that the government would be on top of it. Well, the fucking reason why they don't is because they legally don't have access to it, and they're using her as like a loophole. Like, I was like in Japan one time, and they are like funny, like with the way that they gamble. They have like these huge casinos, but like gambling's actually illegal there. So what they do is like when you win at the casino, they give you like a bunch of like tokens basically, or like, it's like you go to like Chuck E. Cheese or whatever, and you get like a bunch of the little tickets that come out. And then you have to take all the tickets that you win from the casino, and then you have to go to a separate like building or like, store. And with those tickets, you can buy like something stupid, like, but there's all the stupid things are matched to like a certain dollar amount. So it'd be like a stuffed animal for $500,000 or whatever. So then you'd like go buy this like stuffed animal, and then you'd go take the stuffed animal to a final location, and then you'd sell those people your stuffed animal, and then they give you cash. So it was like literally like a third party. That's like exactly what the US government is doing right now to get this information with our DNA. It's super shady, and she is like so like she upfront about it, which is awesome because like I do love like, transparency, but like I don't feel like she understands like what she's actually talking about or saying, or like, but anyway, so but yeah, this is what I kind of explained before when she is talking about uh okay, yeah, listen to her excuse about why. Okay, this is so crazy.
Fair or
That's correct, but there's actually 2 iterations of DNA analysis. What makes a SNP compatible for genetic genealogy is if it's one that is tested by the commercial DNA testing companies, because those are the files we're going to be comparing against. So if you spit in a tube and you mail it into, say, Ancestry DNA, they're going to test about 700,000 of your genetic markers. So we want to use as many of those same genetic markers as we can in our analysis, because we want to have a really good overlap so we can get high confidence comparisons. So once that file is created by the lab, our bioinformatics scientists will then go in and work with it, because we're often working with degraded DNA or mixtures, especially in violent crimes. We're often seeing in sexual assaults, for instance, you're going to see mixtures in a lot of those. So our scientists have to work at deconvoluting that and extracting out the victim's DNA from the perpetrator, or the alleged perpetrator's DNA at that point. And then once all of that is done and it's uploaded to the 2 databases, or one of the 2 databases we're allowed to use, then my
You're
work
allowed
starts.
to.
And so I do want to make the point that even though there are over 40 million people that have taken commercial DNA tests, the largest databases have barred law enforcement's use. So we are limited to the two smallest databases, which are GEDmatch and Family Tree DNA. And so those are the only databases where it's going to be compared. And I will get a match list from one or both of those, depending if we upload to just one or two. But those are the only two we're allowed to use. That match list is then how I start my work.
Okay, let me ask you sort of a foundational question.
Okay, so yeah, exactly. I'm glad. So I feel like Harvard lawyer Lee or whatever, she asks like decent questions in here, and I feel like she does hit like a lot of like important points, but like also like I feel like she is in the same way like as this other woman, so you see more like I feel like they kind of understand like on a very like elementary level about like like they've been told like you can do that and you can't do that, and then they don't really like think about it further. They're just kind of like accept it, and then like instead of like actually like like conceptualizing or considering like what it all is and means, you know what I mean? But anyways, like same thing with this Harvard lawyer Lee. She asks these questions that seems pretty like pertinent, but it's like she still doesn't really understand like the actual argument behind it, because she like both of them are so hypocritical. It's crazy. Like I'm just like, do you know what you're saying? Like, oh my god, it's just so weird. But anyways, so but what I think she's gonna ask here, and which I think is like super important, and which I think is like also very similar to what happened in the Koberger hearing with the data from the cell phone and location services or whatever. Here she's saying the same thing. So she has this, third party program that she can run this data on, which, the government can't do it because they don't have access to that. Well, she is not actually working for the government. She's just a like contractor. She's like a third party, which is like why they're able to like do this without getting in trouble. But like, so they end up having to just provide her with these samples. So basically, she has no way of verifying. She just has to trust that the cops are giving her this DNA that needs to be tested. But like, that doesn't stop someone from saying like, hey, will you test this strip of DNA with, in your case? And then we can identify someone. But like, lo and behold, like it's actually like his, neighbors, DNA, not from the actual crime scene, because they have no idea who's putting it there. It's like, duh, no shit. Like, how are you double checking your information? And it's the same shit with the Koberger, like in the like data collection with the cell phone stuff. It's like, that's what she was asking him. She's like, okay, dude, can I access that? Like, can I see what you did to like get your answers? Like, you're just gonna present us these answers. Like, we need to make sure that like you put in the right information to get this outcome. Like, it's just like, hello, people. Like, it's just weird. Okay. Anyways, so listen to how stupid this is.
Why is the SMP not compatible with what law enforcement uses the STR? Why is it just it happened that way, or why are they different?
It's just a different type of genetic marker. And traditionally, law enforcement has used STRs, which are short tandem repeats. It was just a choice that was made decades ago when genetic technology was a lot newer.
Okay. A choice that was made a long time ago. Yeah. So it sounds like there was actually a choice, and they chose to only have that level of DNA. And we know that DNA has been progressing over the last, 50, 60 years. So, it's not because what she's saying, I don't think she's lying, but I think people have just like told her shit, and she just is like, yeah, okay, yes, that's true. And then like, just repeats it, it's like, um, anyways.
Now we have much more advanced genetic technology. I don't even know if SNPs were being tested back then, if that was even possible. The reason SNP testing really became popular and effective is because it was being used for GWAS studies, which is genome-wide association studies, where they were using it.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna look this up because okay, this is where she said that they have this information from their places, and I'm like, she said it's a genome wide study. Genwa, okay, because where I feel like what I think they might have collected this DNA data from like the 20s. Like our great grandparents maybe like allowed them to get access to DNA for like polio research or something. Like I'm talking shit like back in like the 20s and 30s, people gave, their consent. This is my guess. But I bet it's right. And I think we might find out now, because this is going to tell us what that data, like where that data information is coming from, or that data set is coming from. So she's like, well, we use the information from Genwa or whatever. Okay, hold on. No, that's not it. What did she say? Genome something? Okay, damn it.
Had a certain health condition, they would test our DNA to see if they could figure out what gene or genes were responsible for that. Or if
Okay, yeah, did you hear that? Hold up. Oh, fucking A.
Okay, let me ask you sort of a foundational question. Why is the SMP not compatible with what law enforcement uses, the STR? Why is it just it happened that way, or why are
it's just a different type of genetic marker? And traditionally, law enforcement has used STRs, which are short tandem repeats. It was just a choice that was made decades ago when genetic technology was a lot newer. Now we have much more advanced genetic technology. I don't even know if SNPs were being tested back then, if that was even possible. The reason SNP testing really became popular and effective is because it was being used for GWAS studies, which is genome-wide association studies, where they were using it to study health conditions. So if you and I both had a certain health condition, they would test our DNA to see if they could figure out what gene or genes were responsible for that. Or if once they had that determined, they could test people and tell them if they were at high risk for a certain medical condition. And so that is what ended up being used by the commercial DNA testing companies, because it provided so much more information. STRs were partially chosen because they were believed to be junk DNA. They were supposed to give very little information about anyone. It's just the combination of those markers is unique, and that would help us determine whether the DNA came from someone, but it wouldn't tell you about their health or their appearance or even their ancestry. And so now we're using these genetic markers that tell you much more about a person, and we're also using almost 1 million of them. And so that is why we're able to expand the search from law enforcement can only do a search for very close relatives or that individual in their database. If the state allows it, they can do what's called familial search, and they can look for first-degree relatives to that unknown person. But some states don't even allow that. So the main thing they're doing with those STRs is a one-to-one comparison. Is this the same person? But with SNP profiles, because we have so much more information, we can find second, third, fourth, fifth cousins and beyond. And that is what gives genetic genealogy the power to.
Yo, so what she just said is like that legally, some states, not even all the states, some states have chosen to allow familiarity, like studies to go on with the DNA, which literally means that they allow you to check if you have a like direct relative in the system, like, and do that type of matching. And you have to get special permission to do that. And like, she is basically just saying that, like, well, luckily they can just surpass that and they can send it all to me, and then I can do it past 8 generations. It's like we decided as a society to only do it for 1 generation, and you had to ask special permission to do that 1 generation, and now you're just thinking it's all like gravy that you can just like, use this random information. Who's the people that gave the consent to this information? Like, literally, was it our great grandparents? Like, what is she talking about? Like, this is so vague what she just said. Like, she's like, we use the Genoa studies. It's like, well, what are the Genoa studies? You know what I mean? So I just like looked it up, like, here, genome wide. So then, okay, I just read this all, and it doesn't talk about where their sample is, like where. Okay, so we'll have to go into the fucking. Okay. Collection of DNA from a group of individuals, such as disease status. Okay, wait. Okay, but where did you get consent for this? Like, who is your sample? Okay, wait. Used from biobanks or repositories? Hold up. Wait, confounders need to be carefully considered in recruitment strategies. Must not introduce biases such as collider bias. I know, but about just a collider. I don't know what a collider bias is. Genotypic data can be collected using microarrays, generation sequencing for whole genome. Yeah, okay. Wet laboratory, okay. A deletion of a bad single nucleotide. Okay, so individuals' genetic substrata. Okay, but external replication, the independent cohort must not. CRISPR, dude, no. Okay, so this is all problematic. Like, I didn't really understand most of what I read there, but I understood enough. And like, I mean, if I'm trying to like, because it's already like 3:30, which is what time I said I would leave, but I think I could read through that and actually like kind of be able to understand it because like it's easy to figure out. Like, it sounds like, okay, wait, selecting study populations. Family-based designs. Sample size. Yeah, but where's your fucking sample size? Where's your sample, bitch? Okay. Widely used research cohorts, such as the UK Biobank, recruit participants through volunteer-based strategy, which results in participants who are on. Dude, this is all important. I'm gonna take a screenshot. I think okay, nice, I got it. Okay, so yeah, this is where it's talking about where it gets it. So okay, it sounds like widely. Okay, I want to know more about this UK Biobank, and I want to know also cohorts that enroll participants from hospital based on disease status, such as Biobank Japan. Dude, that's why. Okay, so this is people giving permission over in the UK. It sounds like there was like one group of people that like allowed themselves to be studied for this purpose. Sounds like same thing in Japan. They probably are taking, they're taking advantage of vulnerable people. They're like, oh, we're only going to use this information to like help out your family to figure out like if they also have this gene that could impact their like, length of life or blah blah blah. Like those breast cancer studies that you can do and stuff too. But like, I mean, this is shit from like, if you're having to go back 8 generations and stuff, it's because, eventually we all go back to the same shit because like, it's like that one Eve thing. But that's how like when you start finding it, when it's getting a lot more close together is like when you start to have a lot more of the gene matching. So, but like, it's just like basically eventually you could probably connect all of us together, but they're using this, like they're narrowing down people from like, Japan and UK that gave permission, and it's like affecting us. Do you know, like over here it's like how can they consent for us? You know what I mean? Um so so I want to get more information about that because this seems super shady. And I feel like that should be concerning for all of us, but I'm glad that we looked more into that. So I'm gonna like leave here then. And I feel like I did good. I don't know how long I've been going, but almost like an hour. But yeah, I'm gonna remember where I stopped off. So okay, yep. Okay. Around 11-minute mark. And then I will just start going back over, and hopefully you guys find this as interesting and important as I do, because and I promise like it'll start getting more interesting. She is like so ridiculous. Like, I mean, my notes, like I wish I should show you guys. I'm like just like an example of something that I wrote. I was like gives a super dense lecture about ethics, which is so laughable. It talks about how terms of service bars the use. Best to follow best practices, ethically high standards. Oh my God, OMG, she is so fucking dumb. She is saying the perp gives up that right when they commit a crime. Also super interesting about Israel and my heritage and law enforcement be able to use it. She says okay, anyway, so I have some notes about like how hypocritical she is, obviously, but I hope you guys have a good day and a good night, and I hope to be back tomorrow. I'm gonna turn on the camera for now to finish this up, and also maybe talk a little bit more about the Idaho 4 case, because and I also found a lot of more similarities like with some of the like Karen Reed too. Like, I don't know if you guys have been following that at all, but like what they just testified to yesterday, like Brian Higgins, and like describing what he did in order to like get, turn over his phone, because he like basically got rid of his phone. He was able to destroy it, but like they actually have a log of, I mean, it's like these people are so dumb. It's like, dude, you don't think Big Brother's always freaking watching? Like, come on, dude. It's like when I used to work in the prison system. Actually, okay, yeah. So this is the last little story that I'm going to tell. So when I used to work in the prison system, and actually it was like during George Floyd, and I worked in, well, so I live in Minnesota, so I was working for the Minnesota Department of Corrections, and then George Floyd happened and shit went down, and then Derek Chauvin ended up getting sent to the prison because they didn't keep him in the county jail or whatever. They like automatically put him just like in the prison system, like the same shit that they're doing with the Delphi guy too. But yeah, and then they I would like really kind of want to look up like his history. I like definitely was like, ooh, I would, because you have access like to all the programs. Like you can look up like any inmate that you want, But I knew that they like probably were able to tell like exactly who's looking up, like they can do a whole system run. And I feel like people don't understand that. It's like, dude, you actually think that you went to a machine where you were able to like delete all that shit, and like you didn't think that they actually like kept a log of that? Like it's just like people are so stupid. And anyways, so yeah, that's another example where I feel like the cops are being super shady about stuff. But okay, cool. Well, I will talk to you guys later. Bye.